Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast. It's your host Akshat, and today's episode is going to be an exciting deep dive into the world of prompt engineering, Gen AI, and LLMs. We have got a fantastic guest lined up for you today. We have Vishak from Avaamo with us. Let's get started and hear from Vishak himself. So Vishak, how did you get into generative AI and give us brief about your professional journey of AI as well?
Hey Akshat, thank you for the introduction. Hello everyone. I started my journey 2 years ago, Akshat. Basically, I got into this conversational AI industry
Yeah.
as a happenstance. Basically, I was looking out for opportunities. I was fresh out of college, so I
Mm-hmm.
was looking out for opportunities, doing the research as usual, looking at market trends and whatnot. And I saw that there was lot, uh, a huge demand for conversational AI solutions because most of the businesses went online due to the COVID transition and all of that. So we needed a lot of automation and a lot of what do you say, machine intervention, if I'd like to say.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, let's just give it a try. And I did my research, learned as much as I could about OpenAI and all of that. Before even ChatGPT came into play or OpenAI came into play, I joined this institution called Avaamo, who were already the leaders in the industry at the time. I had a chance to work with one of the uh, greatest experts in the field. Actually, there are a lot of very good people working here. So it's been a very great experience and a very great time working here. So yeah, my so once I began, so I started off as an intern basically. So they taught me the ropes, guided me as to okay, this is the right route to follow and everything. So once
Mm-hmm.
that was done, I became a full-time employee over there. So my journey began as to working widely with financial uh, clients basically. So a lot of financial type use cases used to come in, and we
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of requirements there as well. So as time grew, as OpenAI, the advent of OpenAI came into be, we started seeing a lot of demand for prompt engineering. So
Mm-hmm.
coming down to prompt engineering basically is that we just needed people who could actually converse better with this OpenAI to get it to answer in the right way possible. It's what the saying goes, like if you need the right answers, you need to ask the right questions. So that's how it all began, and I guess so I deep dived into prompt engineering, and it began from there.
Okay. So can you tell us about some LLM projects that you are currently involved in, and what aspect of project excite you the most?
So when it came down to LLM, actually, Akshat, so we were still working on a product, wherein because we saw a lot of demand for LLM, business-based LLMs, basically. So we needed something more safe and secure for businesses to access, and basically the uh, let's just say the requirements were more specific towards their business. So
Okay.
we needed a what do you say, a closed loop or a closed network where they could actually share sensitive data and ensure that okay, this is going to stay safe. It's not going to go out to the world or whatever. So that's a basic requirement anywhere and everywhere. So LLM, we were developing a few LLMs in our in-house in our company, but again, I basically focused on POCs and training models to answer questions based on that. So I was involved in the POC
Okay.
stage, but the entire development usually happens from the product side,
Okay.
whereas I was on the service end of it. So we build the POCs so that we can convince the customers that yes, we can build this for you. So I
Okay.
was involved there.
Okay.
The most intriguing part about that is that make getting the AI to actually give us the right output when we require. So imagine if there's an output that I have to come into after like 5 iterations of data cleaning or organizing or classification for that matter. You give me a set of data, I'll have to classify it or even try to figure out what that is and whatnot. So for those 5 steps to actually come into fruition, I'll have to write comprehensive prompts at each stage and ensure that the final data that we get is clean and crisp. or as per the requirement. So that was what was more intriguing, because that anything that would take somebody weeks to do, the AI could probably achieve it in a lot less time.
Okay. And any use cases for which you are writing prompt engineering as of now? Doing prompt
As of
engineering?
now, no action. Unfortunately,
Any,
at the moment,
any
no.
experience from the past?
Yes, for a lot of use. So basically, we used to work on mostly generic tool building, basically.
Okay.
So we would build tools like, which would give us a flow chart as to, you give us a use case and it
Mhm.
would develop the flow chart by itself, basically.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's like, so a customer comes in and says, okay, I need a journey where I need to help the customer buy stocks, or help them buy it through a chatbot or whatever. So if you have to come up with a journey for the user, which is
Mhm.
more like less number of steps, but more accurate when it comes down to gathering information or even giving suggestions to the user.
Mhm.
I worked on so basically, you give it a use case, give it the parameters, and it should basically give out a design, a preliminary design that we could take into account before we start designing right off the bat. So I built a use case where it would generate that. So that was my personal project, which I worked on when I was working at Avamo. So yeah, we built something like that. So we used to use IO diagram. If you're familiar with it, it's a widely used website where you can actually draw flowcharts and everything. You would generate code which could be imported to that page, and it would give us the prototype, basically. So that project went on for a while, but again, the fine-tuning challenges and the more complex use cases, it takes more time because it needs continuous improvement, continuous tuning, and goes on.
Okay. And like when you do prompt engineering, so how many iterations like do you think from writing a basic prompt to actually delivering it to your customers? Like how many iterations does it usually takes?
Uh, Honestly, iteration sometimes is defined by the kind of complexity on the use case. Sometimes
Okay.
that's what I feel. If it's a
Okay.
very straightforward use case, we usually achieve it by 3 or 4 iterations. And also, it depends, because we have a certain system when it comes down to
Okay.
writing prompts. So I take a very step-by-step approach. So initially, whatever use case is there, I write down what it. So the initial one is just giving it a skeleton, or just a overview of what the use case is, and
Okay.
then I'll see what the output is. And then, so basically, how I write my prompts is, I give it certain instructions in points wise and ensure it sticks to that. So to come to that final stage where we've covered all bases, we will
Okay.
need around 3 4 iterations if it's a very simple use case. If it's more, the steps keep going on. But finally, when we do have it, we would have covered most of all of it under those points. Basically, a rule book for the OpenAI to actually follow at every iteration of generating the required answer that we require.
Okay. And like while you are iterating, how do you actually evaluate the outputs? Like if this output is good or this iteration is okay or not?
Yeah, so what we have is, we usually have a conversational designer who basically designs the journey firsthand. So
Okay.
what we have is, first is human intervention. We have a basic framework laid out by a designer who thinks the user journey should be like this, and which is the best user journey that can be done. So
Okay.
initially we use the OpenAI to build a prototype, but
Okay.
then we again fine tune it and then give it to an actual designer who actually designs the conversational flow,
Okay.
to see how the conversation should go about, and at
Okay.
every step what kind of output is expected from the AI, in order for the user to understand and give the necessary input to go into the next step. So that's the first step. So once we get that, we usually then go about doing the iterations based on. So at the first step, what is the most ideal answer that we are looking for?
Okay.
Is this what we want? So we have a benchmark right there, but at the
Okay.
same time, we have three different benchmarks.
Okay.
The first one being the most basic, like, the AI should be able to give a minimal level, a minimum quality, if you'd like to say, the lowest level. That's the minimal quality that we'd like to maintain. And the medium benchmark, which we usually hold to a certain standard where, okay, if it does not have much information to go on, but there is a little information available, or if it's able to give a more relevant answer. So
Uh,
that's the another benchmark, and another benchmark which we keep for edge cases where okay, more information is available or very less information. So edge cases again depend on the use case, but
mhm.
these three benchmark allows us to actually check if the given answer by the AI does suit our needs, and then based on that we go on the iterations. So in my personal experience, the highest number of iterations that I've done
Mhm.
is around 12 for a particularly mildly complex use case. But then again, it all depends on what kind of answer you're expecting out of the AI basically at that point.
Okay. And what are the various challenges according to you in the prompt engineering for someone who is, getting hands-on on it? Like what kind of challenges he or she should be ready to face?
The first and foremost challenge that I saw was that prompt engineering is very different in different hands.
Okay.
Again, it's because it's like having a conversation with the AI. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine if person A is talking to person B and the conversation is a little bit interesting. But then again, if a person C talks to B, the conversation entirely different. The topic may be the same, but it could differ on a different level. And it all goes into how comprehensive and how concise and precise the user who's actually doing the prompt engineering there. So
Okay.
language, as we all know, language plays a huge part there. So how well you have your command over your English language, or the way you communicate with the OpenAI, how well you understand uh, it understands, like how well you understand that it understands you, basically. So the basic principle being that okay, you need to know how to talk to it, how comprehensive you can get, how well you can make it understand what you need. So
Okay.
that's one of the greatest but basic challenges that I see when you dive into prompt engineering at the moment. The second one being hallucination sometimes. If
Okay.
your prompt is not precise, or if you're trying to generate something very specific, sometimes it tends to hallucinate and maybe give you junk values, or maybe not give you something what you've specifically asked for. So that goes into specificity basically. So if you're looking at generating a specific array of data, you're trying to classify it into a certain array or something, but at times it might not give you an array, it might just give you a list, or it might give it you in some other format. So those kind of situations do come in. We do mitigate those by not retaining context, but in certain cases context needs to be retained, and I think so that's still an ongoing challenge we're still facing. We are trying to fine tune it as best we can, but I guess so there are more relevant solutions for them. But what we at our institution did was basically not to retain context in certain situations, but in certain situations, even if we did retain context, we would basically tend to add another instruction so that it strictly adheres to the output specification that we have specified.
Okay. Okay. Great. So you mentioned, so can you mention some other, inefficiencies like hallucination?
Yeah,
Yeah.
inefficiencies, and there are also token limitations. Sometimes you'll have to work with a large data set, and the token limitation sometimes does put a strain on how well you can. So sometimes if the data is split, it might not make sense. But again, doing batch processing again reduces speed, because imagine you ask for something and it'll have to go batch wise computing data or analyzing or classifying that. The average wait time by the user is increased, which is again a bad experience when it comes down to having smart conversations using an AI with a user. So the user, and on an average, the user can probably wait around 2 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds maximum, because everybody's in a hurry these days. Everybody wants fast answers, quick answers, concise, as we all know. So that processing time is another challenge that I see sometimes when working with larger data sets. So I think so that's one of the major issues or problems that we face.
Okay. And like this is a very fast moving landscape right now. So,
Huh?
how do you ensure you are up to date with the evolving landscape of this field, like
So
in Gen
when
AI?
it comes down to that, so when it comes down to improving or keeping yourself informed,
Okay.
so basically, let's just say it's just like working with any core languages. Like
Mm-hmm.
newer frameworks will come out, everything will come out, but the core of it will remain the same. It's like, for example, if I take JavaScript, which I actually I work using JavaScript. So JavaScript is a core programming language that we use. We have React.js, Node.js, Vue.js. Now Next.js has come in. So we have a lot of frameworks working with. So each of it different on its own, but at the same time, at the core, it's still JavaScript. So I feel even if you do have to update yourself, maybe going through like researching on a weekly or a monthly basis, making sure you keep up to date of any changes that happens in. So because as we all know, every day it's a fine tuning process for OpenAI. Every day there's a lot of improvements, a lot of changes come in. If you
Okay.
just tend to keep up to date of any changes that's happening with whatever you're working on, ideally. So that should keep you updated. But the best thing that I would see is try to read up and research on a weekly basis. Try to see what kind of changes have come in, or what kind of updates have been made, or even try to just get hands-on, try new things, try to experiment with OpenAI with yourself. Like try different things as much as you can and see what it could do. So my way to go about is experimenting most of the time. I do a weekly research as to what kind of new changes have come in. I try to incorporate them into my uh, uh, procedures while doing prompting, like procedures or points that I follow. So, but the best way to do it is researching and experimenting on your own. That I think so. Self-taught, self-teaching is the best way to go about it.
Okay. So Vishak, I think I'm finished with my questions.
Okay.
Any parting thoughts for the audience out there?
Uh, One piece of advice or parting thoughts that I would like to give to anybody who's deep diving into this is that prompt engineers, there's a huge demand or an uprise for prompt engineers these days because each, so again, like I said, the conversation can go different just by changing how you talk to it or anything. So what I would suggest is try to work on your language skills, try to be more clear and concise. So basically it's about having a strong communication skill with that technology. So if you
Okay.
can converse or communicate well in real life, your job will be much more easier as a prompt engineer. And
Uh-huh.
also trying to keep informed about relevant technologies. Being better with basics will actually help you do a better job here. And also testing, debugging, or even trying to see how well you can do with the iterations. It's always repetitive task, but then again, each and every time you get a different answer. So for you to be evaluating whether this is right or not, so you will need, let's just say, a wide range of knowledge there about a lot of things. So what I would suggest, like my biggest suggestion is that deep dive into communications. Try to read up on the latest technologies as much as possible. Try to be better at your basics. I guess that should actually help.
Okay. So with that, that's all for today, folks. Hope you loved listening to Vishak and had great insights from this episode. Please leave your questions in the comments and we will reach out to Vishak to answer those for you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.